Welcome to the Professor Lending Institute, where we make sense of housing economics and the home buying process. I'm Jordan Steffaniak, president of Professor Lending, licensed loan originator, and your home lending professor. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the topic of what you need to know and do before you buy a house. So I get this question all the time, and I want to give a couple of answers to what you should be doing or what you should not be doing. Before we do that, do like the video if you enjoyed the content, if it was helpful in any way. Share it if you think this could be useful for your friends or your family. And then make sure to comment or subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content that we create here at the Professor Lending Institute. So, there's a couple of things you need to do before you buy a house, most certainly. The biggest two things that I tell everybody to do are to get educated and get educated. Yes, that sounds like the same thing, but it's not. So let me explain the two pieces of educational information you need most certainly before you buy a house. Number one, you need to be educated on your goals. You need to understand what they are and where you want to live. So think about this. What are your goals? Do you want to have a $300,000 house? Do you want to have a $200,000 house? Do you want to have a 1,600 square foot house, a 2,500 square foot house? Do you want to live within the city limits? Do you want to live in a rural area? Do you want to live with 4 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms? What's a non-negotiable? What's negotiable? You got to get all those things in place to help you make sense of what house you should be even looking at. Without having any of these prior pieces of knowledge, you can't really start. So you got to know what your goals are. Do you want to buy, is it a 30-minute radius from your work? Is it a 30-minute radius from your parents? What are the questions that you need to ask? And you need to think about that. So what are your goals? That's going to a large extent determine how you go about buying a house. And then once you've done that, let's say you say, okay, for my family, I have 1 child. We expect to have 1 more or 2 more or 3 more. So I need a 3-bedroom house or I need a 4-bedroom house. That can at least start you on the trajectory of understanding what are your options. So you need to become educated, number 2, on your options. What do you have available to you? So if you're in a rural area, you have things like a USDA loan that's available to you, where you can have 100% financing. Or if you're a veteran, you also have a VA loan that's available to you with 100% financing with no location restrictions. You also need to think about, are you eligible for down payment assistance programs? Are you looking at homes that may potentially offer you a seller credit to be able to cover portions of your closing costs or all of your closing costs? These sort of things will then help determine, can you actually afford that $300,000 home? Are you able to get that? Can you achieve that goal? So when you've been educated on these two things, and I always recommend talking to a licensed loan officer when you're asking these questions. When you're beginning to ask them, yes, you talk to your spouse, you think through them, but you need an expert to help you understand what is actually feasible for you and what might be outside of your budget. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the lending world and the home finance world that just your everyday average person like you is just not aware of these things. And the people who are immersed in them day over day, hour over hour, constantly dealing with them, they have access to this information. They deal with it so they can help guide you in these things. So the other pieces, I would say, of things you need to do would be to understand your debt to income ratio. I guess that's another educational piece. So maybe that's 3 educational things, but you need to know this. So maybe this goes in your understand what your options are, but you need to know what your debt to income ratio is. You need to know how much you make gross before any taxes, and then you need to know how much your monthly debt obligations are. Now, this isn't your phone bill or other liquid things that you can just cancel. It's actual installment debt or credit card debt or student loan debt or these different things. What's the monthly payment that you owe on these things? And then you need to understand, what is my potential house monthly payment going to be? And you can divide the monthly debts divided by your income. And as long as you're under 45%, in most cases, you will be qualified to purchase a home or that home that you look at. So when you do all these calculations, you can determine, oh, I need to make more money and get a new job, or I need to get a raise, or I need to get a promotion, or you need to pay off some debt. And that can give you a sense for how close you are to buying the house that you want. And that may end up adjusting your goals. So you have your goals, and then you work through your options, and you get educated on these things, and you realize, oh, wait, my original goal was to buy a $400,000 house. I can only afford a $350,000 house. And if I want to really be comfortable and be safe, it's really more like $340,000 or $330,000. That's going to adjust your goals and the homes you look for and what you're going to buy. It's not going to tell you not to buy unless you truly can't afford it for some reason, but it's going to give you a better sense and understanding for what you can actually afford. The other pieces you should be doing before you buy a house would be number 3 or 4, depending on, I guess, where we put the income ratio, would be to make sure that you are enhancing your credit. Now, I talk to a lot of first-time home buyers, and they don't have much credit history, and that's okay, or they have a bad credit history for some reason. You need to work on making sure your credit is as good as possible, making on-time payments, never making a late payment. And I tell people all the time, even if homeownership is truly far away and you have no credit history, you need to start building that. Open up a credit card, learn how to use it responsibly, and start building your credit. Have a car loan. These different things will increase and enhance your credit, which will give you better pricing when it comes time to buying a home. Now, it's not the end all be all. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't have a great credit score. As long as you are typically above 680, you can get loans below that. But if you're above 680, you should qualify for most loan programs and be able to take care of that. But obviously, the better credit score that you have, the better pricing that you have when it comes to buying a house. So that would be another thing. Number 4, I would say, is if you have any large debts, if you're able, start chipping away at them as best as you can. Now, this may be lower in priority than number 5 that I'll talk about in a moment, which would be about saving for a down payment, because if you can qualify with the debt, if you want to buy the house with you're going to need a down payment of some sort, depending on what loan program it is. If it's conventional loan without down payment assistance, you're going to need at least 3% as a first-time home buyer. As a second-time home buyer, unless there's been a 3-year win gap from home ownership, you're going to need at least 5% down. And so in those scenarios, you would need to make sure to number 5, save for a down payment more than you would number 4, pay off your debt. But that's always a good sort of practice and standard that you want to focus on. But that's lower tier compared to these other things, which would be simply understanding your goals, understanding your options, what's available to you, what are you trying to do, what are you trying to accomplish, and then from there, making sure that your credit score is good, that you have actually have a credit history, and then that you're saving for a down payment and hopefully paying off some of that debt. Now, if this is your second home or third home you're buying, usually you're able to use the equity from your house, the sale of your previous house, to be able to then put that down towards the new house, so you don't really have to worry about a down payment, which is one of the great things about home ownership. So when I'm talking about saving for a down payment, it's mostly for that first-time home buyer who's trying to get into the market. And so, I know the biggest things, though, are simply just being educated on what you're trying to do. There's no secret sauce. There's no magic bullet. Now, there is a sense in which you got to be educated, right? You got to know what your options are. You got to know what's available to you. And you typically aren't going to know that if you just go Google or you talk to a buddy who bought a house recently. They don't have all the information, all the knowledge. You need to talk to somebody like me, a licensed loan originator, who can help guide you through this process to make sure that you are taking advantage of what's available to you. You can talk to another lender, of course, and sometimes they're just not going to know what's actually available to you, or they're going to give you a product that's not as advantageous to your situation. So you want to make sure early on in the process that you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. And then that's going to help you understand your goals, make your plans, and then move forward. Oftentimes, people ask all the time, what do I need to do? And they feel like homeownership is going to have to be 2 or 3, 4 years away. They have to do X, Y, Z, all these special steps, and have to bring something really special. They just don't understand how it works. There's like some magician or voodoo thing in the back. No. Just get educated on your goals and your options. And then we can work from there. And homeownership is actually usually far closer than they had assumed. And it would have harmed them financially had they continued to wait. And there's all sorts of reasons for why you should buy a house as soon as you're financially able. As soon as you can go get a house, you should get a house. There's all sorts of reasons for that. I've done other videos on that, I think, if I remember correctly. If I haven't, then you guys need to tell me. And I've written some stuff on this. But owning a home is good for so many reasons. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. There's studies that show this. It's good for your family stability. It's good for your kids' health. It's good for them growing up and having a stable place to be. It's the best, number one, most important hedge against inflation. There's all these different reasons that you should own a home. It's a wealth building tool. It's the best wealth building tool you probably have in your entire life. So buy a house as soon as you can, but you got to understand your options. You got to understand your goals. Those are the 2 most important things. So get educated. That's what I would tell first-time home buyers before you buy a house, that you need to get educated on what you actually can do with where you're at currently. Because there's all sorts of other little things you got to know. If you have seasonal income, or if you have a second job, or these other things that you're expecting to use as your income, you got to understand if that can actually be used or not. Maybe you have a 1099 job and you haven't been claiming it on your taxes. Well, that's a problem. Maybe you've only been working this second job for 3 months and you're expecting to use this income. Well, that's another problem. Again, you'll have to wait in order to be able to use that income to qualify. There's different underwriting requirements for these things. And so talking to someone like a licensed loan originator, again, would help you understand how to plan your goals. All right, that's all I've got. Hopefully this was useful. If you have other questions or thoughts, do drop a comment. Let me know. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to thinking with you all soon.